Game 2 here on Wednesday Night StarCraft just about to get started. Here's the countdown. It is going to be Rocker versus Sandbox on MLG Shakura's Plateau, and the game is now underway. Sandbox showing an amazing Zerg versus Protoss in Game 1. And what do you think of the decision to send up Rocker, another Zerg versus Protoss matchup, after Sandbox went so easily through Hasu?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sandbox was basically, he basically countered exactly what Hasu was wanting to do. Hasu was wanting to get on a quick 3-base, and that's basically a response to Zerg players that want to get on those 3 bases and just drone really hard. But instead of droning really hard, we did see Sandbox going for more of an offensive play in the mid game there, and it just really punished what Hasu was trying to go for.
All right, we'll see what Rocker's going to do. Rocker looks like he's going to be setting up that Forge Fast Expand, and it may be a little bit easier for a Rocker to do exactly that on Shakura's Plateau. A 2-base Protoss, pretty easy for Shakura's Plateau. Meanwhile, Sandbox doesn't have as easy of an option or as easy of a time trying to establish a 3rd base as it was on Entomb Valley. And we'll see whether Sandbox will go for perhaps a heavy macro play, or if he might try to be a bit more aggressive. I know Rocker was watching the stream, and he even made comments saying that Sandbox's PVZ or ZVP was very, very impressive.
Yeah, I think this map's going to play out maybe a little bit differently because the Protoss doesn't have a quick 3rd they can take very easily with just gateway units. At least a small amount of gateway units, which is what Hasu tried to take his 3rd with in the last game. So that temptation really isn't going to be there. Rocker's probably going to go for a solid 2-base build, at least to start the game. So Sandbox really isn't going to have the same sort of timing he had in the last game to sort of push in and take advantage of a macroing Protoss. Instead, I imagine he's going to be going for 3 bases himself whenever it's safe and doing his best to defend 3 bases. You can do that a few different ways. Creep spread, very important for a 3rd. You can also try to go pretty low tech at the start and just stay on hatchery tech for quite a while and go just lings and roaches, and then sort of transition after you have your 3rd and your economy sort of established. But something's really got to give for a Zerg in this situation.
Yeah, so far in this game, I really liked how aggressive Rocker was. Rocker went for a Nexus first before his Forge. That means that he's gonna have a lot of probes coming in. The problem is that we do already see a spawning pool coming in from Sandbox, but Rocker has a little bit of scouting information on Sandbox, knowing that he does like the heavy macro. You can see that there are no Zerglings being trained at all right now. And as soon as the Overlord does come across this Nexus, if the Overlord knows the timings and knows that that Nexus is actually, is it actually faster? No, it is just 2 seconds behind the hatchery. So it is really going to be up to Sandbox to see how he's going to respond, as we now see a double gateways on the front door.
Yeah, we were actually seeing this a lot at MLG weekend this past weekend with the Winter Arena, which was fantastic. I ordered it and watched it, and this is something Oz was doing, was getting at these 2 quick gateways and really trying to put some pressure on the 3rd for a Zerg player, sending out 4 to 6 zealots and different variations of that sort of build. Another thing that Protoss players will do is just place down that gateway to wall off and then cancel it once the other gateway comes up and throw down the cybernetic score.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we will have a cancellation there, as the Overlord flies a little bit too close to a photon cannon, taking a bit of damage, now backing off. There is still no cybernetics core yet up for Rocker, finally getting it in position, and I believe if any zealots are trained, there's not going to be enough of them to really deal that much damage unless Rocker does start to chrono boost or at least double train these zealots, as right now only 1 gateway is being utilized.
Yeah, the important thing to do is have you want a lot of zealots. Small numbers can definitely do well against small numbers of lings, but if you're going to take these across the field, 1 zealot is not going to do too much. They can hardly beat a queen if the queen's microing, and lings definitely going to be able to take those down, but small packs of zealots in the 4 to 6 range can definitely take on huge amounts of Zerglings, really cutting down the surface area, and you can do a lot of economic damage to the Zerg player, which is why I think we see more of these 2-gate openings with just zealots rallied across the field. Already there are, I believe, 3 zealots out, and they're doing their best to take the towers, and I imagine they'll be making their way into the 3rd to maybe try to take down a drone or two, but there's a spine crawler at the third.
Yeah, Rocker does have one proxy pylon on the far side of the map. He should be able to get in reinforcements. The warp gate tech about 1/3 or almost halfway done so far. Overlords are in position to spot anything if there is any sort of trick play, as the Zealots are now going to try to run up that ramp. But there is that one spine crawler, as you mentioned, and that spine crawler with a base 2 armor really absorbs a lot of the damage that a Zealot would normally deal, from 16 down to 12, since the Zealots do have that double animation attack.
Yeah, the 2 attacks on the Zealot really do hurt it there, and now that Rocker has these, looks like 4 Zealots out, that actually sort of costs him in this early mid-game here, where he could come out with a number of gateways. Instead, he's just working off of 2 gateways still. He did get down a quick third, so I was completely wrong. He is going to be going for an economic build, trying to use the Zealots to basically control the middle of the field. And right now, Sandbox not quite sure what he's really going for. He's got a Roach Warren coming up, but he doesn't have a ton of drones. It's 57 to 47 right now. Not a huge lead at this point in the game, and we'll see whether these Zealots are able to cut into the drone count.
Yeah, very interesting. Rocker perhaps guessing that there was no spine crawler in the main base, now going to town in the drone line here. So a lot of workers have already been killed. The drones now being pulled off to get a decent surround. A queen now coming in over as well. But the total worker kills is up to 4 or 5. But more importantly, a queen was lost early on, and that is going to perhaps miss an inject or two, and that will hurt the overall economy, as Rocker's proxy pylon has been spotted.
Oh wow, so Rocker has his third up now, and he's adding gateways in front of it, so he might actually be completely walled off, and his tech of choice is going to be the Dark Shrine. So he is going to have, I believe, 8 gates in just a moment, and that Dark Shrine is about 1/3 of the way done. The proxy pylon has been found by Sandbox, and Sandbox now going for that low-tech play I was talking about, where you just go for lings and roaches, and you can really try to overwhelm your opponent, especially if they go for a greedy play. And Rocker with this quick third base, I'm not sure whether it's going to be able to defend against a roach ling assault.
Alright, we'll see what's going to happen here. Rocker does know about the 3 bases. Roaches and Lings are now trying to push their way up. The Dark Shrine needs about another 25 seconds to go, and the Dark Shrine is going to be the magic bullet here to stop any attack, as Sandbox cannot really deal with a Dark Shrine yet. He does not have the tier 2. He is about to get layer up. It is now currently teching. He also has a couple Spore Crawlers down just in case the Dark Templars try to do anything sneaky there, as the Overlord, once again trying to suicide its way in, will get shut down by sentries.
Yeah, it doesn't see much of anything, just a few gateways, and now we see Rocker. He's got that Dark Shrine done, and he's going for a Warp Prism, so this is really smart. With those static Spore Crawlers, using Warp Prism and Dark Templars, he can harass in a few places at once, and you know, the fact that they're cloaked just makes it that much better. It's very difficult to to spot those if you are not anticipating it, and we see the first 2 Dark Templars sent across the field. At this point, we'll see whether they're able to do any economic damage. Already, as you mentioned, a Spore Crawler at the third.
Yeah, those Dark Templars are going to have a very, very rude awakening. They are going to be revealed right as they get there, and the Queen's now already engaging here. This is not looking good. The Dark Templar is walking straight in and just getting destroyed by those spine crawlers. Meanwhile, over here on the third base, there is one Dark Templar trying to go to town. Will it be able to do enough damage? Yes, there are force fields down, and the Dark Templar should be able to get some damage onto some of these units here. But this is not looking good. More Dark Templars are going to be needed in order to fend off this attack. Dark Templars are making their way in over here on the low ground. There are 3 photon cannons battling it out. Warp Gate will fall down here in just a moment, as more and more roaches making their way across the map. Are the photon cannons going to be enough, as there are a wall of Dark Templars just slicing through these roaches, but roaches are rather beefy units.
Yeah, Dark Templars do a lot of damage, but Roach is actually one of the higher HP units for their cost in the game, and the DTs are cleaning things up. One actually has 18 kills at this point, but I think that Sandbox did a decent amount of damage. I'm not quite sure it's actually worth it, the cost of that, unless he's able to take down this Nexus. So far, he's just lost a few gateways, Rocker has, and now we do see the Overseer moving into position here. So DTs will no longer be that magic bullet like you were talking about. Rocker's going to have to try to chrono out some units here, and he lost a lot of his gateways. So right now, he just has 4 gateways. He actually destroyed the one at his front door. So working off of 4 gates, trying to defend 3 bases is going to be pretty tough against a a Zerg player.
Yeah, the Zerg player, however, is at 0-0 in terms of upgrades. The Zerglings are now going to town on the probes, but Rocker now taking the lead in terms of overall food. There is an Immortal now joining in, but the Immortal focusing on Zerglings when they should be focusing on the Roaches. And what is happening here? The Immortal trying to reposition. Dark Templars now once again going to re-engage, and the Dark Templars now being forced to run back, as you can see that the main door was taken down. The Immortal's going to slip down here, but now Rocker re-establishing all of his lost gateways at what I'll call the starting location on the bottom left-hand side of the map. And who has the advantage? Sandbox has a larger army, but Rocker with a lot more workers.
Yeah, Rocker actually used that Warp Prism in the main of Sandbox, and he was able to take down a lot of drones with those DTs. Now we see that Roaches are going into the natural here for Rocker, and again, just trying to depower some Warp Gates, and Rocker doing his best to get those established again. But Sandbox keeping the pressure on. I think at some point Rocker might hit a tipping point where he is going to be able to defend against these units as they do stream across the field. Sandbox really all in at this point, just 43 Harvesters on 3 bases. He is trying to establish a 4th, so peculiar timing getting up that 4th and pushing across the field with all of these units. He's got 20 Lings and 2 Roaches on the way, so he's doing his best to try to pressure the Protoss player, but I think at this point Rocker has been able to defend, and as long as he's got his gateways up and running at this point, he's got a pretty decent economy with 74 probes. He should be able to push across the field and punish Sandbox for that aggression.
Yeah, the Warp Prism still warping in units on the far side. A Spine Crawler now finally warping in. Total worker kill count 30 versus 11. The Warp Prism may actually try to fly away now, as it's already done enough damage. More Zerglings now funneling across the field. 1-0 upgrades on the Roaches. I don't believe any of the Zerglings have upgrades. No upgrades on the Zerglings, up against 2-0 upgrades on the Stalkers, Immortals, and Zealots.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty ugly at this point. 134 to 94, and again, a DT was in the main there, just doing a ton of damage to these units already with another 5 drone kills. So Sandbox down to 47 Harvesters. He's doing his best to keep droning up. He is on 4 bases, so he's got a lot of hatcheries. He's actually got a macro hatch. He's got 5 hatcheries, a lot of larvae, but just not a great economy at this point. That aggression, which was stopped by Rocker, who's now looking to establish, it looks like a 4th, definitely did not pay off for Sandbox. Now he's going to enter this mid-game at a severe disadvantage.
Yeah, here we go. The Immortals now making their way over. Level 1 weapon or armor upgrades now being chrono boosted out, and if he can get level 1 armor, all of those Zerglings who are still currently 0-0 will basically be only doing 3 damage a scratch against the actual hit points of the Stalkers, Immortals, and Zealots, and that is really gonna hurt. If he gets level 2 upgrades, I believe the army of Rocker can simply A-move into the base. Even if the Roaches try to focus down the Immortals, it may simply be too much, as the Zealots will be there slicing their way through those Roaches as well.
He might actually just be able to A-move at this point as well. We do have DTs again in the main of Sandbox, and these guys are just going to work, doing more and more damage, up to 42 total kills on the drones for Rocker. It's 161 to 126. His economy is booming compared to his Zerg opponent, 81 to 55, and now he's going to be pushing in to try to take down this 3rd and 4th. And on this ramp here, I think these Immortals just going to go to town on these Roaches.
The Roaches now trying to make their way in. The Immortals are just able to deal so much damage, but the Stalkers should be trying to absorb more of it, but it is enough. Sandbox says GG. Rocker taking game 2 in this best of 7 series, evening up the score at 1 game apiece for Infinity 7 and VVV.
Yeah, Rocker, I've always said pretty good PPZ player, and he showed it there. He did go for that fast 3rd, and unlike in the first game, Sandbox tried to punish it and just was not able to do any sort of lethal damage like he did to Hasu. So kudos